All right, I'm going to go through a pretty long article here. I'm not going to even cover half of it, so I'll put the link and definitely go, read it for yourself. It's long, but it's really good. The person who transcribed it here said they got it from the Veteran March on D.C. on October 13th, like in a pamphlet, I'm assuming, and then they typed it up and put it online here. So the article will start off assuming the reader is already familiar with the subject of martial law, that is, the suspension of the Constitution. Curfews, rationing of basic goods, enforced relocations, confiscation of firearms and supplies, and summary arrest and execution by soldiers, paramilitary police, and other jackbooted type wielding assault rifles. Basic survival tips will be followed with some detailed ideas on how this country should be run once we take over. It says, if you are reading this before martial law is imposed by the current corrupt government, and if you are reading this while you're still nominally under constitutional law, remember we're in a state of emergency perpetually, so Constitution is technically suspended, but it's urgent you read from the beginning to the end so as to appreciate the opportunities you currently have to not only protect yourself and yours, but to attempt to stop all of this from ever happening. So rule number 1, never trust the government unless they say they are going to kill you. And again, there's more to each of these bullet points, like I said. I'm just going to do a synopsis here. Rule number 2, keep your mouth shut. Do not tell anyone anything that could get you in trouble. Assume anything can get you in trouble, because it probably will. Especially with any government official, but anyone looking to gain a favor with the state can and will snitch on you. Rule number 3, any authority figure is the enemy. Unless you are waging a war of liberation, gathering intelligence, or spreading disinformation, or infiltrating, have no relation with nor voluntary contact with any soldier, police officer, bureaucrat, or anyone in authority in private life cooperating with martial law. Review rule number 1. Assume they're all liars, con artists, hustlers, thieves, and sellouts. Rule number 4. Your personal survival is more important than obeying any dictate. If you're prohibited from having an item that helps you survive, get the item. Review rule number 2 and keep your mouth shut. If you're prohibited from having extra food, medicine, guns, then you will cache your prohibited items in a place where they won't easily be found. Rule number 5. Help out those who are resisting. They, unlike you, have decided that there's nothing to lose and therefore deserve anyone's help who's willing to risk their lives. Do you think martial law is going away on its own? Rule number 6. With the utmost care, develop a survival network. This is a group of people with skills and/or resources who can help each other in areas they would be lacking on their own. It could be anything from extra food, medicine and repair parts, fuel, transportation, whatever. In any given neighborhood, you can have machinists, weapon makers, medical personnel, drivers of good knowledge of local roads, gardeners, agricultural knowledge base. Rule number 7. Avoid government monitoring and control. Know where the cameras are and how to avoid them. Know who patrols where and what routine they follow so as to avoid contact. Know your snitches and always feed them BS if you can't avoid them. Find ways around checkpoints, side streets, forest paths, neighbors' yards, railroad tracks, tunnels, whatever go-around necessary getting from point A to point B without a pack of government troops searching you, checking your ID. I can't and won't go into detail. How you find your way will be up to you. And I'll just add, don't carry any electronics on you, as it will be monitored 24/7. Rule number 8, avoid a government roundup. It could be from a disaster, an attack, or even because they've decided to end the pretense and show you what they really think of you and your rights. You'll just wind up in a detention camp where your freedom of movement and resources will be strictly controlled. Rule number 9, find a way to successfully resist. Probably not with guns or bombs, but there's plenty of ways you can monkey wrench the basic functioning of the state during martial law. And again, he goes on to list a whole bunch of ways to throw a monkey wrench in. So I highly recommend going to the actual article for the rest. And I just skipped it entirely, but he gives a list of things that everyone should have, even if it's just to survive, a storm or something like that. Something everybody should have. So go check out the list. So, Section 2, how to take a nation back that's already under martial law. To be honest, it's probably the most difficult challenge anyone can face, because you're starting a conflict from scratch inside the belly of the beast. You can't fight for territory when you've only got a few guns against divisions of enemy troops equipped with automatic weapons, armor, air support. The pitiful acquiescence of a people who long ago gave up liberty for the trap of existence in a childlike, cushy debt slavery. People can be stubbornly stupid when it comes to misdirected hope. Many of these slaves will actually defend the system that has enslaved them. Such is the enemy's genius at their social engineering. All those slavishly obeying the state in a martial law environment for some forlorn hope that their lives will somehow go back to the false paradise of the late 20th century will in effect be the enemies themselves. But let's not let this scenario play out, because a martial law will lead to a civil war and national destruction. What I suggest is that it's much better to organize right now. We still have a political process we can use if we learn how to use it effectively. We can together find small towns and take them over, like the libertarian free state projects, only focused onto individual towns. Take them over and spread out from there. We as Americans need a standing example of what a free state is. And what's the most important thing you can do? The most important thing you can do is pray. Don't do it in some New World Order megachurch and tithe to some blow-dried huckster. Do it like Jesus taught. Find a quiet place, quiet your mind, and open your heart. God will talk to you and convey some insight. If you can't listen, it's because you're out of practice listening. So practice. Eventually, God will talk to you, and it's in your best interest to listen. God wants to help you. He isn't looking to burn you for eternity for your petty imperfections. He is looking to liberate his people, all of us. He won't liberate a people if they're dead from living the way the world has brainwashed them to live.